You know what we're going to do today? We are going to preview a playoff series that involves your Detroit Tigers. All today on Locked On Tigers.
You are Locked On Tigers, your daily Detroit Tigers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Tigers. I'm, of course, your host, Scott Bentley. Today is Tuesday, October 1st, 2024. Thank you so much for making Locked On Tigers your first listen. Every single day, we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB to win $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Welcome in, welcome all. Today's October 1st, and I think that that's awesome for a lot of reasons. One, October is one of my favorite months of the year. I just love the fall. But two, and far more importantly, in the context of today's program here, is that it is October 1st, meaning it's October, and your Detroit Tigers are still playing baseball. October baseball returns. I was going to say to the city of Detroit, that's not a guarantee yet. They will not play a home game in the wild card round. If you are unaware of how the new playoff format works, there is the top two teams in each league get a bye in the first round straight to the DS, and then everybody else, the other four teams, play in a wild card series, which is all in whoever has home field advantage. All three games, it's only a 3-game set instead of 5. All 3 games are in whichever team has home field advantage. So there is no guaranteed home game this postseason, but there is guaranteed playoff baseball involving your Detroit Tigers for the first time in a decade. So I want to preview this series. That's what this entire show is going to be about. We're going to preview the Astros, break down the type of team that they are, what we are going to look out for in this series, talk about what we can expect from the Tigers, which really is just a whole lot of question marks, but we'll get to that conversation a little bit later. Just kind of break in all the ins and outs of both teams and whatnot. And then we will obviously discuss, playoff roster implications, managerial decisions, et cetera, and fully get you prepared, hopefully prepared for what should be some of the most exciting baseball we have had this team play in quite some time. So I want to start off with the Astros hitting, because I think when most people think of the Houston Astros in this era, they think of just an absolute juggernaut, right? They think of a team that has made the ALCS, like it feels like every single year since, forever. And they think of the core, right? And the Correa team and the Springer team, and obviously AJ Hinch as well. And I think that this team is very unique to other Astros teams because they got up to a little bit of a slow start, which is worth noting, but then they turned it around and are still going to finish obviously in first in the AL West, which is impressive. There's some good teams there, despite what, Oakland and really this year, what Los Angeles have been doing. And I think this year's team produced runs a little bit differently than maybe some of the Astros teams of the past, right? And that doesn't mean they're bad. It's just different. And I want to prepare people for that. This Astros team and offense is a free-swinging, contact-first team. More so than like dang near any team in baseball, right? The Royals are similar in their approach. Cleveland doesn't swing and miss too much, but they're not afraid to draw walks. Like it's a weird dynamic, this Astros lineup, because of this, I don't want to say lineup wide approach, because like Yordan will draw a walk with the best of them. Kyle Tucker's one of the best pure hitters that this sport has. I think he's one of the more underrated players in the game of baseball. So it's not necessarily like a lineup wide philosophy, but kind of all of the players that aren't stars, right? Outside of like Bregman and Altuve, who's more of a, I guess, a contact hitter anyway, but certainly can go yard. And then the other two names I just mentioned, a lot of the pieces they've added over the last year or two that are kind of the lower in the lineup type of players, almost all are kind of this mindset. This team had the 7th lowest swing and miss rate in baseball and the 3rd highest swing rate in baseball. They also had the 2nd highest chase rate in baseball. Now, when matched up with the Tigers, that's really fascinating because the Tigers bullpen specifically does not have a ton of swing and miss in it. However, it does have a lot of weak fly ball and ground ball pitchers. And so if you can get these guys to chase, even though they have, like I said, the tied for the 2nd highest chase rate, and then they have the 6th highest chase contact rate. So just purely the amount that they make contact with balls that are out of the strike zone. All of that can, I think, work in the Tigers' favor. It also cannot, and I'm not trying to just like not give you a straight up answer here, but that also could not be good for a team that can and do swing and miss, right? If they can just truly make contact with anything, that's a scary task for a bullpen that, while it has been very good, doesn't have a ton of strikeout stuff in it, at least high-end strikeout stuff in it. So that's a matchup that I'm really interested in, how this lineup fares, I guess I'll say, against a Tigers bullpen that has just been phenomenal in the second half of the season. They have the highest first pitch swing rate in baseball, and the Tigers are obsessed with getting ahead 0-1. The Tigers throw in the zone from a pitching perspective more than almost any team in baseball, and the Astros swing first pitch more than almost any team, literally more than any team in baseball. They are first. So that is also something I am really interested in. Who is going to budge? Right? Are the Tigers going to go, okay, well, if we can start off 0-1 without throwing the zone, we'll do that a little bit more? Or are the Astros going to try to reverse psychology to not? I'm not sure, but that is another thing that I think is maybe one of the more under talked about storylines of this is how the pitching and the hitting for Tigers pitching, Astros hitting really lines up either really poorly or really well, depending on which side of the aisle you kind of subscribe to there. And then the Astros have the 3rd highest overall just swing percentage. Like I said earlier, they are 4th from the bottom in total walks drawn, but have the 3rd fewest strikeouts from an offensive perspective as well. So this team does not draw walks, but they also do not strike out, and they put the ball in play more than a lot of teams, almost more than all teams. And again, some of those individuals, right, like Dubon is somebody who kind of really epitomizes that. This guy is basically what Harold Castro was to the Tigers, but Dubon is much, well, I don't want to say, Harold Castro played a lot of different positions, but Dubon's a better player. Okay. I'm not trying to disrespect him by making that comparison, but just in the sense that he's a high batting average, low slug, low OPS, low OBP guy. And so, him, Pena, similar mindset, Caratini, similar, Diaz, another guy, a little bit more pop than some of the other names I just mentioned, but another guy that's more, average over anything else. Like there's a hefty portion of their lineup that really is just, okay, we want guys that are going to put the ball in play. The Tigers have had a really good second half when it comes to defense, and that is something they will absolutely need in this series. The Tarik Skubal is Tarik Skubal. Everybody else that pitches, it's not going to be the strikeout show, right? You're going to have to make plays. The pressure is going to be applied to the defense, and this is a defense that, while it has gotten better since the first half of the season, is still unbelievably young. They're going to have their heads on and really take advantage of those balls that are put in play. I want to talk about some of the highlights of this lineup. Obviously, some of the best players here. I also want to kind of go over their most recent lineup card as well, so we can kind of get a better idea of what we're going to see. then we'll get into the Tigers offense, which we're not going to talk as much about. You guys listen every day. You're very well aware of what we have offensively, but we'll break it down from the Astros perspective as well. Then we'll talk pitching, AJ, start time, everything you can imagine, all after this. Got to talk to you today about our friends over at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to everyone. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season on Prize Picks. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. It's the best way to get action in over 30 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, Texas, and of course, Michigan. Prize Picks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy. So your lineups stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. If your player leaves the game in the first half and doesn't return, Prize Picks keeps your lineup live, which is just such a cool feature. So download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, that's LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Segment 2, Locked On Tigers. Appreciate you all for tuning in. As always, making us your first listen every single day. Shots of everydayers that do tune in every day. We will, of course, be back tomorrow recapping Game 1 of the wild card round between the Astros and the Tigers. Jake Rietma, listen to him immediately following the game in the Locked On Tigers postcast. So talking about this Astros offense here, Jordan, his health is somewhat of a concern right now. It sounded like he practiced fully and did some jogging, did some hitting and whatnot on Monday. So I would be pretty surprised if we avoided Jordan, but obviously that would be really cool if somehow we avoided. Jordan Alvarez is legitimately one of the best hitters in the entire sport. I don't think he's nearly talked about enough in that conversation of who are the best pure hitters in baseball. Kyle Tucker, similar, one of the better players in the American League and in baseball. Alex Bregman's had an interesting year. That's a guy that a lot of people want the Tigers to sign this winter. Free agent year. Got off to a brutal start. His first month and a half were really, really bad. And then really, early to mid-June, kind of turned it around. And from then on out, especially in the second half, has been the Bregman that most of us are used to. This team is 7th in baseball in average with runners in scoring position. That's not surprising for a team that is so oriented on putting the ball in play. So you're going to get clutch hitting, you're going to get a lot of contact, and you have the big thumpers in the middle. If that sounds scary to you, it should. The Astros have made the ALCS each of the last, 7 years? They are a juggernaut. The American League, their fan base calls the American League playoff bracket the Astros Invitational, right? Like that, and they've earned that. It is literally just, can you get through Houston for pretty much every team in the American League for a while now? And the fact that they're even playing in the wild card round is kind of a surprise and will make you raise your eyebrows because this is a really, really good team. The Tigers offense is something, again, we're not going to spend too much time on the Tigers offense in like breaking it down because we do that every single day on this show. I do want to point out that this offense has not gotten significantly better in the second half. If you look at the batting average from the team in the first half of the second half, it is down to the last number, exactly the same. And the OPS is within single digit difference. So this turnaround that the Tigers went on did not happen because of the offense. It happened because of the pitching, which we have talked about on this show at length. The one thing that did change offensively was timely hitting. The RISP, runners in scoring position, success that the Tigers had this year changed dramatically from the first 2.5 months of the season throughout the rest of the year. And again, pitching is the reason. Pitching is why we are here and why the team is in the postseason. But the Tigers actually ended as one of the better teams in baseball in hitting with runners in scoring position according to OPS and batting average. top 10 in both. So you will need that to continue, obviously. That is a very Captain Obvious statement. Everybody knows that's true, but it's something I think is worth reiterating because it's why we got here. We got here because the offense had timely clutch hitting and the pitching was incredible. Speaking of pitching, let's move on to the Astros pitching. Look, we talk about how great the Tigers pitching is all the time because it deserves it. It's incredible. This Houston pitching staff is right next to the Tigers in an awful lot of metrics, man. This is a really, really good pitching staff as well. Framber has had an elite second half, has been legitimately one of the better pitchers in baseball in the second half here. Hunter Brown from Detroit, rooted for the Tigers growing up, had a terrible April. Like, I remember when the Tigers played the Astros early in the season and Hunter Brown was moved to the bullpen after. Like he had an ERA of like 9 or something ridiculous to start off the season, has turned it around and now has a sub-4 ERA and has been really, really good pretty much the entire rest of the season outside of that first, 5-6 weeks of the year. So he's somebody you'll likely see. Blanco, another guy that's had a fantastic year, obviously. Kikuchi, who they traded for, has had a fantastic year. Like, they have a lot of different types of starting pitchers they can throw at you, and all of them have had really good 2024 seasons. All of them. So I know that everybody loves to talk about Jordan and Tucker and Bregman and Altuve and et cetera, et cetera. This pitching staff is incredible, and I think is, in my eyes, the biggest reason why the Astros have found themselves atop of the AL West yet again. The bullpen has also been really solid as well. You're talking about Josh Hader there at the back end of the pen. Hader has had a kind of a roller coaster of a season, I think is fair to say. His ERA's in the high 3s. Obviously not bad, and is still one of the premier lefty relievers that this sport has to offer. But, Ryan Presley, one of the things that I think the Hader addition for Houston actually did, even on top of just getting one of the premier lefties, like I said, was improving the depth, right? Presley's really good, but I think your bullpen is really, really good if he's not your closer, right? And that's what they found this year. So you have him, you have Abreu who throws gas. They have a lot of talent in there, and their bullpen is full of dudes that have, 3.2, 3.3, 2.9 ERAs. So that is something else that the Tigers are obviously going to have to deal with. Justin Verlander, also on this team, obviously has had kind of a rocky year, really health-wise, performance-wise. ERA over 5, doesn't have very many innings under his belt. We'll see how he is utilized, if he is much, in this series. And then obviously we have the Tigers pitching, which we have talked about again at length. First half and second half, dramatic difference, right? And it wasn't bad in the first half. The Tigers pitching was not an atrocity in the first 3 months of the season, but it's just been elite in the second half. It's been legitimately one of the best staffs in baseball in the second half, almost a run lower ERA difference. That is so ridiculous. I cannot stress how absurd that is. The fact that it's even close to a run is unbelievable. The batting average against in the first half was about 240, right? It's like, okay, it's not great. I guess it's not terrible, but that's not super great in today's day and age of baseball. It's now under 220 in the second half. So just, again, numbers. I know I'm just kind of like spitting a ton of stats and numbers at you in this episode, but I think context is important going into these playoff series. This is a bullpen that almost, didn't quite end, but almost ended with a sub-3 ERA in the second half of the season. Let's talk about some comments AJ Hinch made. We'll talk about AJ Hinch and his return to Houston, some other stuff involving the game, first pitch times, etc. We will do all of that right after this. Got to talk to y'all today about our friends over at FanDuel. NFL fans, you can start your season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place all of your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Also got to talk to y'all about our friends over at Game Time. We love our friends over at Game Time. They are the best in the business. And as far as I'm concerned, the only place that you should go to get tickets to live events. They also have a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier because it filters out all the fluff to only show you the incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. It's the best. And they have so many other features as well. Seat views, you can check out your seat before you purchase it. The lowest price guarantee, where Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference in the Game Time ticket coverage, where your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. All right, everybody, welcome back. Your third and final segment, Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in as always. So, talked about the Tigers pitching, and look, like it goes without saying, like they are going to need Tarik Skubal to be really good. It's like, what do you want me to? If Tarik Skubal does poorly, they're in trouble, and if he does really well, they have a chance to win. Is that mind-boggling analysis there? Like, again, some of that stuff just kind of goes without saying. But I think that they need, if they are going to get past this round or potentially make a run in October, it is going to have to be doing what got them here, right? I think a lot of people are focused on, like, it's the playoffs. Are they going to play a completely different brand of baseball? No, and they shouldn't. They have the best record in baseball since August 10th. They should do what has made them the best team in baseball since August 10th. And that is what they're doing. Tarik Skubal is pitching game one. AJ Hinch says it's Skubal and then chaos is the quote after that. And that is what we expected. They don't have a solidified, guaranteed, you know what, this guy's just going to be the game two starter on this team now that Jack Flaherty is gone. And so we are going to see a lot of kind of bulk inning guys, right? Obviously, we're going to see probably multiple innings from Reese Olson at some point. Casey Mize, I'm sure at some point. Cater Montero, if he makes the roster, maybe. It's been working. So I fully support it. Do what got you here. I cannot reiterate that enough. It was really surprising to me to see a large portion of the fan base that was frustrated for some reason at that quote and at that mindset. It's at the end of the day, I just read a bunch of stats. I just talked about, all the things that I'm watching for, what type of teams these are. This could be a 2-game sample size, man. It could. This could be over in 2 days. Anything can happen in the playoffs. I think it's important to contextualize the teams and what type of play style they have. But the Astros could go out there and hit 72 home runs over the next 2 days. Their pitching could be terrible. The Tigers could have Reese Olson go 8 innings. We haven't been here. Only 2 players on this roster have been here before. And it's probably only going to be one on the playoff roster. I don't think Kenta Maeda is going to make the postseason roster. So I think, and we can transition into that, that is one of the big talking points of this series is experience versus inexperience to the extreme, to the max. You're talking about one of the most inexperienced teams in playoff baseball history. This is the most rookie-filled lineup in the history of the American League for a playoff team. And the Astros have made the ALCS every single year for like the last 2 presidents. So like it really is, if you're one of those people that weighs, experience in the postseason, you're probably not going to like the Tigers' odds very much. And as I mentioned earlier, it could even be slimmer in experience if Maeda doesn't make it, and I don't think he will. I think there's a real chance that Matt Vierling is the only player on the entire playoff roster here that is going to have postseason experience. I'm recording this relatively early in the evening still, and the Tigers have not released the playoff roster. If they do end up releasing it, then you will know by the time you're listening to this. I tried to wait all day for them to release it, and they just didn't. If this is the notification of the roster, we're fighting. Okay, cool. It's not. That was the my update on on the Lions start time. So I think that we can speculate a lot. I'm not going to spend too much time on it because, again, you as a listener, if you're the midnight crew, then you will not know either, presumably. But by the time you're listening to this, there's a real chance that you already know what the playoff roster is. I'm interested in Mize and Olsen's role. Is it really just going to be kind of bulk inning, bullpen type of one time through the lineup type of pitchers? How does the bullpen shake out? If Maeda doesn't make it, who is? I think that there really is a lot of possibilities, and I think they're going to try to get the group of pitchers that can offer the most unique angles and ways of attacking a hitter as possible, right? They want to give AJ and this coaching staff as many different possible outcomes and as many different weapons for as many different situations as they can think of. So that's kind of what I'm expecting there. Offensively, Evan Petzold had an interesting article of the Freep. Go check that out, where he speculated that I believe it was an opinion piece. I don't know if he's heard anything to make this opinion have any weight to it outside of it just being Evans, and Evans very smart. Akil Baddoo would be an interesting addition to the postseason roster. He obviously has not hit very well in the better part of 2 years, but he brings a lot of speed on the base paths, can draw walks, can hit home runs when he does make contact, and has been really good in clutch situations. It's really since the beginning of his career. So I think that that's an interesting, I would not predict that. I would say that the odds of that are still probably not super high, just given the current offensive roster construction. I think that they kind of really like what they have had going there. But if there is anybody who's not on the roster right now that I think could squeak onto it, it's probably him. I think that there's a chance that Malloy doesn't make the roster, just doesn't offer anything defensively right now. Doesn't hit righties either. Like, he would pretty much just be for hitting against lefty pitching. And I'm not sure how often they're going to use that in a 2 or 3 game series. I don't know. There's a ton of question marks here, as you can tell. And that is really the overarching theme of this entire thing. And that's what we'll end on is we don't know what we don't know, man. I'm checking every single notification I get to see if it's the Tigers announcing the playoff roster, to see if I have to restart this entire show. We don't know what we don't know. None of these guys have been put in this situation, and they've been playing high leverage, intense baseball for the better part of 2 months now. And that's great. It's still not playoff baseball. Playoff baseball is different, man. It is the best, but it is different. And the intensity is unmatched. And we've seen so many players over the years, that have either been really, mediocre or not very good regular season players and are really good in the playoffs. And then obviously vice versa. There is so much that could happen in a playoff series. We have this preview show to get hype about it and so that I can relay information. But at the end of the day, who knows? No one knows what's going to happen. That's what makes playoff baseball the best. Last year, all of the best teams lost early as far as regular season record goes, right? The Orioles won 100 and then got bounced in the first round. Like, to the point where people were legitimately, which I disagreed with, but people were like, is the playoff format awful because all the best teams in the regular season don't make it on? Like, That was the extent of the upsets that happened last year. So who knows? This is an inexperienced team that has never been put in this situation and is filled with rookies that is going up against one of the fixtures in the American League postseason over the last almost decade, but certainly the last 6 to 8 years. Comerica Park, there's a watch party. I think it's $5 tickets, general admission. You just come down, they put the game on the big screen, and we all watch together. Kind of cool. So consider doing that. Let's go watch the Detroit Tigers in the postseason. Thanks for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. Shots at everydayers that do tune in every day. We will, of course, be back tomorrow recapping said game one. Tarik Skubal on the bump for your Detroit Tigers. That's who I want on the bump. I want the best pitcher on the planet on the bump. I'll take that. That's the dog right there. Peace and love. Going to therapy's dope. Oh, also, I'm not done, actually. That was the best pump fake I've ever done. 2:30 start times are ridiculously stupid. So dumb. Baseball just completely fumbling this. This is the best pitcher in baseball. Okay, the best pitcher in baseball. Against, again, a huge market team that has been to the ALCS and the World Series like every year. And you're throwing them at 2:30. The only thing I can think of is that Major League Baseball legitimately doesn't think we have any sort of chance. So they're just like, this is going to be the least competitive series. We're going to put them in the 2:30 window. I think that's terrible marketing. Baseball is known for its terrible marketing. We'll see what happens. But I think that's really, really crappy, and I don't like it. Okay, now we'll see you tomorrow.